Welcome everyone to the second session of 12 of the Neville Goddard free study group. And this is the second one where we are going through the wonderful book, The Law and the Promise. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up where we left off last time. And I finished, if you have, I don't know which book you guys have got, but if you've got the copy like this, it's continuing on from page 13. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a bit, and if at any point you want to ask a question, you can just put your hand up in the chat, or in the, not the chat, in the little bit where the cartoon hand is. If you don't know how to do that, just type in the chat, how do I put my hand up, and someone will help you. And then we can, discuss certain parts of what we're reading, because the idea is to read it and then to apply it to whatever you're going through. So, Zane, can you mute yourself? I can't seem to mute you from here. Aisha, can you mute yourself? Zanet, can you mute yourself as well? NGO, can you mute yourself too? That would be great. Thank you, everybody. Now, imagination is spiritual sensation. Enter the image of the wish fulfilled, then give it sensory vividness and tones of reality. By mentally acting as you would act, were it a physical fact. Now, this is what I mean by spiritual sensation. Imagine that you're holding a rose in your hand. Smell it. Do you detect the odor of roses? Well, if the rose is not there, why is it? The fragrance is in the air. Through spiritual sensation, that is, through imaginal sight, sound, scent, taste, and touch, you can give to the image sensory vividness. Okay? If you do this, all things will conspire to aid your harvest. And upon reflection, you will see how subtle were the threads that led you to your goal. You could never have devised the means which your imaginal activity employed to fulfill itself. So Neville is big on the five senses. He talks about using the senses to really assist with living from it, okay? And it's important to add whatever senses are relevant to whatever it is that you're trying to manifest. So you won't necessarily be using all the five senses for each and every one, as in each imaginal scene, but you will use whichever ones fit what you're doing. Okay? Now, it's letting go, because we never know how and when things are going to manifest. So as Neville talks about, you could never have devised the means by which your imaginal activity employed to fulfill itself. So we never know how things are going to come to pass. And this is the great bit. If you practice living in the end and you practice imagination creates reality, then what happens is you become a being, spiritual being, who goes with the flow of the path of least resistance to the destination of your desire, how it manifests. Okay, so very important to let go of how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And that sounds simple, but we do, as human beings, get fixated on those things. And it's the more you practice this and you get better at it and more skilled at it, you will start to see that when you surrender the how, you surrender the when, and you put your full focus on the end result, you become someone who is more secure, someone who understands that there needs to be an incubation period, a hatching period, and that you are comfortable with enjoying the journey. And that, like nature with its cycles of planting a seed, watering it, the little shoot comes up, and then it becomes, you know, a full-blown plant. This is the same. It follows the same cycles. Okay? Now, going on, if you long to escape from your present sense fixation, as in what you're fixated on, and that it's causing you angst, it's causing you anxiety, it's causing you fear, it's causing you anger, because you're fixated on your present situation, which is often what I don't want. To transform your present life into a dream of what might well be, you need but imagine that you are already what you want to be, and to feel the way you would expect to feel under such circumstances. Okay? Now, this is what Neville talks about states. So, say, for example, you want, let's use money as an example tonight. You want more money, you feel the fear of not enough money, you feel anxiety about not paying certain things, you feel trapped, and you feel the total non-freedom state. What you're trying to go from is trapped, suffocated, to the state of feeling free and feeling I can do what I want when I want. So before the money shows up, you have to hop into the new state of being, which is the state that you would be in if you had the money, if all your debts were paid, if you could do what you want when you want. Okay? So it really is a huge jump mentally and emotionally, but if you can practice feeling a bit more free, a bit more relaxed, and you hop into that state, which is what you would be in if you had money, that would really, really help to attract more money. So it's the state of being that is the magnet that repels or the magnet that brings in. Okay? Now, like the make-believe of a child who is remaking the world after his own heart, creating your world out of pure dreams of fancy. So it's to enjoy like a child, childlike, not childish, but childlike, like we used to do when we were kids. Create your world of pure dreams of fancy. Mentally enter into your dream. Mentally do what you would actually do, were it physically true. You will discover that dreams are realized not by the rich, but by the imaginative. Nothing stands between you and the fulfillment of your dreams, but facts. And facts are the creations of imagining. If you change your imagining, you will change the facts. So it really is that simple. The more you change what you focus on, the more you look at the solution, the more you let go of the problem, the more you stop trying to work out the problem, the more you put your energy and full focus on the end result, the more Abraham Hicks talks about this, which is separate to Neville, but she talks about it's a focus-based universe. So what comes at you, what comes to you is where you put your attention, your energy, and your focus. Okay, Justice.
Yes, I just wanted to go back to like using the five senses and with self-concept, because for me, whenever I think of like maybe a scene for like I am loved, I see like the picture of like a rose or something, but that's like outside validation. So I was wondering if you could maybe help me figure out like a scene or something for those different like self-concept, like imaginal acts. If that makes any sense.
Can you give me an idea as to what you're actually trying to get to?
So one of my like hardcore beliefs is I am not enough, but
Yes.
I feel like if I do something that in a like an imaginal scene where it's maybe somebody giving me like a present, that's kind of reaffirming that outside validation that I don't want to do. I want it to be internal validation.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I think it's okay. If you get a gift, does that say to you, I'm good enough in the receiving of the gift, or you're good enough to them?
Yes, like right now, if I were to get a gift, it would be, oh, I'm good enough for them. And it's kind of temporary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because they could take it away as well.
That's true. Or it can be short-lived where you got the gift and then 2 weeks later it's had a shelf life, as in the feeling attached to it dies off. So you go, okay, I can see what's good is you're really clear about all that. So you can see that you're still dependent on external reassurance to feel good enough. So what you have to do is go, okay, I want to work on, I am good enough. Hang on. So what you're doing is you're saying, this is the thing I need to work on. And how do I do it? How do I get there? How I get there is firstly changing the thoughts in my mind. And then that changes the state of being as you get better at it and you work more on it, you see. So it really is about reprogramming through repetition with an imaginal scene, through repetition with affirmations, and through, I think, clearing a lot of inner child old stuff where the I'm not good enough began. So changing states is harder when you're dragging a lot of old things, a lot of old emotions from old situations. So to back up Neville's work, Neville doesn't necessarily say, work on inner child, but if you can combine Neville's work with clearing the inner child and then re-inputting with affirmations, then you've covered all your bases, you see. So I would create an imaginal scene where you would feel amazing, feel good enough, but with no one around. So you literally just feel good enough because you're born, because you're here. So if I had to ask you, okay, what scene, like, I'll give you an example. For me, being on a beach always makes me feel free. It makes me feel the state of surrender, letting go, happiness, joy, expansion, and feeling that I don't need anything else. So if you can find a scene that's equivalent to my beach, and maybe use the beach, maybe use a beautiful mountaintop, anywhere that you have been, try and go back in the memory bank and say, where did I feel that feeling of feeling exhilarated and really, it's almost like the I'm not good enough just totally fell away. So if you can go to those places in your memory bank, pick out one where you remember that, because it's somewhere you've already been, you've already experienced it. So pick from memories that you already know.
Okay, I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's super helpful. I have a double abandonment issue, so I know that this is something I'll be working on for a while. But imaginal scenes help for me.
Yeah, they do. They do. And you know what? I mean, I think those of us that have had abandonment issues, it's like you work on it as it comes up again and again and again. Now, I can tell you, I used to be in that state of being all the time. I just felt lonely, not good enough, abandoned, rejected, all those things. Do I feel that today? I'm not going to say to you I never feel it, but it might be 4 times a year instead of, yeah, it is. It is. I mean, and my history was loaded with abandonment. So, and second bestness and not good enoughness. So it's really possible as you clear your body, because it's like a suitcase and you're holding all this in, the more you let the stuff out of the suitcase, the lighter you feel, and then you reprogram, re-input with affirmations, do your self-love, look after yourself, and you start to move up in terms of feeling more and more free and better within yourself.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good question to start. Okay, I'm going to read a bit more and then I will take some more questions. Now, man and his past are one continuous structure. This structure contains all of the facts which have been conserved and still operate below the threshold of his surface mind. For him, it is merely history. For him, it seems unalterable, a dead and firmly fixed past. But for itself, it is a living, it is part of the living age. Okay, so let's just go back over that because that's a bit Neville wordy. Okay, we think of the past is dead. Here we are on the timeline, we're sitting in the present, the past is over here, it's finished, and then we got the future ahead of us. So we look at the timeline, but the past is still alive in us, as in the emotional component, the emotional content. So whatever happened to us then, 1 week ago, 1 month ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it can still be alive in us because we didn't express it, let it go, and let it pass through our emotional bodies. We hung on to it because we didn't know any different. And we went, huh, and we locked it in. So this is why what happens in childhood affects our relationships, affects our jobs, it affects our relationships with romantic partners, and it affects even our relationships with our current family members if they're still alive. So it is about cleaning all this up for ourselves so you can leave behind the mistakes of the past in terms of what happened, but you can't leave behind the emotional, let's say, effect. Now, some things are positive, some things are negative, especially if we're getting reoccurring patterns in the here and now. So it's very good to understand the connection between past and present, and that we are often responding and reacting to what's in front of us here and now because of there, over there, back there, because of mum, dad, teacher, sibling, whoever it was. All that has shaped us. Now, everything that has been is still in existence. The past still exists, and it gives and still gives results. Man must go back in memory, seek for and destroy the cause of evil. Now, cause of evil, bit of a heavy word, but it really is the cause of what's happening, as in what's causing the disturbance today. It's not necessarily an evil, it's just an effect. Sometimes it can feel, really horrible because it creates a lot of suffering, but we can go back, and whether we use revision, which Neville talks about, and we will hear more about, different aspects of revision, imagination creates reality, feeling is the secret. These are all Neville techniques that are specific to him. Now, B, you have your hand up.
Hi, Agnes.
Hello, B.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
So my question is a bit strange. I've got two parts of the question. One of which it's kind of hard to explain. So with what happened was I really visualized with the senses being with my Pacific person. Then what happened was I got some bad news and I said to my manager, I'm going out. Can I just go out for a coffee? And he was like, yeah, fair enough. So I went out for a coffee and past walks my Pacific person. So that was a bit of a coincidence. But because internally I was not psychologically there, I didn't actually go up to him and start talking to him. So I do have to focus on the positive parts of the past as opposed to what happened before us. So what my question was, that currently in my life, I am really happy within my life. Like, I've got a job, I've got nice clothes. Yeah, there's parts of my life, like, as you know, in England, we've got the cost of living crisis and so forth. There are parts of my life that are not that great, but I'm kind of trying to focus on what I can focus on as opposed to not focus on. So it's kind of like, I want to be with my Pacific person because I do actually miss him and I miss the good parts of our relationship. But then it's a case of, I'm asking myself this question, that is it not manifesting because I'm really happy in my life as it is?
No, I think being happy in your life is a great set point, because you're no longer in a state of, the lower states, like lower states as in depression, as in feeling abandoned, as in feeling powerless. All those states often repel what we desire. So if you're feeling quite good in your life, and you're saying, okay, well, is this why I'm not manifesting my specific person? It really is, it's two parts of a nut. There's you and there's them. So we can sweep our side of the street, we can influence the specific person, but we cannot control. So it's not necessarily that you're doing anything wrong. It just is, it is where it is right now. And you are in a good place. So that means that you are in the best state, if you're feeling good, to attract a specific person back. But, it could be that you could be on the brink of it. You don't know. It just hasn't happened today or yesterday, but it doesn't mean it won't happen tomorrow or next week. We don't know, you see.
I think what the problem is, when I was doing my inner child work, I was going to see my therapist, my psychotherapist, and I feel like she added quite a lot of malignance into my thought about my Pacific person, that he's a narcissist, it's not going to work out, and so forth. So I think, without sounding like I'm blaming someone else, I've had to rewrite a lot of the seeds that she's planted in my head. And in a way, I feel like, oh, you had the opportunity in July to go up to him and speak to him. You had this opportunity, you had that opportunity, but you haven't taken it. And if I'm honest with you, I have pushed him away because self-sabotage and stuff like that. But I feel like in my back of my mind, it is a case of like, I've lost the opportunity, and these negative thoughts come back, or like, what if he's married with a child or something like that? But then it's kind of like, well, what if he's not? I don't know. I feel like I've got a weird question that I'm asking.
There's always, it's not just there's one opportunity, and if you miss it, then it's never going to happen. There's always possibilities of more opportunities. See what your belief system is about that. I've missed my opportunity, and and it's like there's a scarcity of opportunities, you see.
Yeah.
So you've got to say to yourself, hang on, why do I think just because I have one shot at it that there's not a second chance, or that there's not a possibility to line up again, you see? So it really is about looking at our beliefs about what we think and the scarcity of love.
And going back to what Neville said, there was a point in time where he came after me, then he didn't like me, but then he came back and I pushed him away. So it's always, you are right when you say that, because I know that he liked me. That's why he became my Pacific person. So yeah.
What about B? What about we have good timing? Because all of that just sounds like it's hit and miss, hit and miss, hit and miss. So you go, I love how we're in sync. I love how we have good timing. That's a different state than, God, we keep missing these opportunities, and we keep, two passing ships in the night. We never connect. So it's changing our beliefs about that person, you see, and living in the state of possibility, the state of love.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to write that down in my book.
Yeah.
The state of opportunities.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, V, no problem. All right. So continuing on. Now, this going into the past and replaying a scene of the past in imagination as it ought to be, or ought to have been played the first time. I'm going to read that again. This going into the past, replaying a scene of the past in imagination as it ought to have been played the first time. So whatever scene you are currently still holding anguish about, whatever that scene is, about whatever desire that is, it is about making sure that you don't keep the past alive in you. Neville always says the problems in today are unrevised scenes of the past. So you keep that scene going in your mind about what happened in that argument, what happened that day with your boss, what happened the day you lost your house, what happened, and you keep reliving it, reinfecting yourself with it in a negative way. So it's the unrevised scenes of the past. So spend some time writing down those scenes that you are still emotionally fish hooked in the neck over, and spend some time doing revision. There is a full revision playlist on my channel for those of you that just want to go, and there's been some good interviews too where people have used revision on lots of different things and unhooked themselves from the effects, the negative effects in the here and now. Okay, revision is a powerful, powerful tool. Now, changing your life means changing the past. Now, you don't physically change the past by going back. You can't. You are emotionally changing the past reaction that you're still carrying. You're cleaning it up, and then it changes the trajectory that you get with what's going on today. The past and the present form the whole structure of man. They are carrying all of its contents with it. Any alteration of content, I love this, will result in an alteration in the present and future. So if you clean up the past, it then rebalances the present. Okay? Live nobly so that mind can store a past well worthy of recall. Should you fail to do so, remember the first act of correction or cure is always revise. If the past is recreated into the present, so will the revised past be recreated into the present. Or else the claim, though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow, is a lie. And it is no lie. So to correct any situation today, you got to go, okay, what am I still hanging on to? What am I still marinating in? What am I still unforgiving about? What am I still angry over? What am I still worried about? Where do I still feel not good enough? Where I don't feel secure? All of these things are underlying what we experience, okay? Now, the purpose of the story-to-story commentary that follows is to link up as briefly as possible the distinct but never disconnected themes of the 14 chapters into which I have divided the first part of this book. It will serve, I hope, as a thread of coherent thought that binds the whole into proof of its claim. Basically, all of what he just said there, we're going to read some success stories from people, and what we've discussed in this first chapter of the law, imagination creates reality, is going to be then shown to us in these stories, and it will be proof of this that we've discussed. The stories are proof. Imagining creates reality. To make such a claim is easily done. To prove it in the experience of others is far sterner. To stir you to use the law constructively in your own life, this is the aim of this book. Now, we are going to go into chapter 2 in a second, and I'm going to call Laszlo for a question first.
Hey, I see. All right. Going back to the first part, you know, when you emphasize about the feeling, you know, like imagining like a child who can actually act as if it was real. Well, I wonder this regarding something that I hope it doesn't so evil, but it's okay when you want to manifest something you feel don't have an ability or the talent to do it. For example, let's say epic responses or counters. For example, when you are being insulted, you're being harassed, trolled, and everything. Like, for example, focusing on the feeling, like doing like replying with a very let's say demolishing or powerful response that will make that person like trigger, getting out there, getting mad and everything. Like focusing on the feeling of getting that desired result of that, or for example, like and also get the feeling of manifesting that ability to do those things, like like for example on Twitter there is those ratios and everything, like focusing on the feeling of like having the ability to do that and getting results billions of times above your expectations. Do you think sounds possible? Like it's an ability I wish to manifest, but I don't feel I can get it by myself. I think I only can manifest it. You know what I mean?
I think, Laszlo, it's working on I am good enough and I'm secure. Because once you work on that and you look back at revising the past where you didn't feel that, then if you feel secure and you feel good enough, no matter what you say that comes out of your mouth will be the right thing to say because it's coming from the right place. So I think I'd take it a level deeper rather than looking at having the right words when someone's insulting you, because it's like, well, I want to, if they're attacking me or they're having a go at me, then I'm going to push back and I'm going to attack back. But it's still in a way coming from a place of not necessarily weakness as in it's a powerlessness, because sometimes if someone's saying something to you, the powerful thing is to walk away and not even engage people that do that. That's what a self-loving, secure person might do, you see. So I hear what you're saying, but look beneath and say, okay, yes, I can manifest the wish fulfilled of me having the right words to say and being able to defend and protect myself. But a step further would be to step maybe away and not have to defend and protect myself and to not engage someone that's doing that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I do the second thing actually, but I wish that's what I was saying. Like, even though I'm capable of simply ignoring and everything, like I think I even become invulnerable to that actually. I wish I could sometimes manifest, that ability to have epic responses or the things like will give me results billions of times better. Like, for example, getting that person triggered, getting that person mad, or getting that person like, breaking their confidence and everything and making them feel very bad and everything. I know, as I said, I hope it doesn't so evil, but I wish, like many times I recently I have been, for example, thinking about like my lack of charisma and everything. So like focusing on the feeling of having an ideal, a unique charisma to those epic responses, ratios and everything could be good, because I don't feel currently like with the ability to maybe master it or getting it by myself. So
well, Laszlo, try it. I mean, if that's the wish, if that's the desire, then live in the end and then revise some scenes from the past where you were not in that state, where you were, say, treated badly, bullied, victimized, because a lot of that, as kids, we grew up with that when we go to school and sometimes in our families, unfortunately. So I think it's try the revision, try the getting into the state of feeling secure, good enough, and powerful within your own self, and then see what happens. You change the trajectory. Laszlo, just so you know, this is a bit different to the Q&A.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
I need to keep moving and keep reading the book. Okay, darling?
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I wish you
Okay.
the best. Sorry if I broke.
No, it's
any-
okay. It's okay. It's just you're used to the Q&A format. So I got to just remind you, that's all. Okay, chapter 2, dwell therein. I wish it was true of man's noble dreams, but unfortunately, perpetual construction, deferred occupancy is the common fault of man. Why build a stately habitation unless you intend to dwell therein? Why build a dream house and not dwell therein? This is the secret of those who lie in bed awake while they dream things true. They know how to live in their dream until in fact they do just that. So in this case, it's called dreaming, which is imagining. You can take your imagining into your dreams, and you can take your dreams out into imagination. That's what's so great about this. And Neville really talks a lot about that the last thing you take into sleep is really what you end up planting. So those of you that watch crime shows before you go to bed, those of you that obsess about what somebody said as you go fall asleep, think about what seeds you're planting as you go into the dream time. I'm thinking of Australia. They call it the dream time. Into sleep time, that you need to be more conscious about what you take into that state, into that lovely place where you plant seeds and water them and then they germinate. So food for thought. What do you take in there? Now, man, through the medium of a controlled waking dream, can predetermine his future. I'm going to read that again. That's a powerful statement. Man, through the medium of a controlled waking dream, meaning what you imagine through deliberate focus on a particular subject, can determine your future. Now, why is that? Because what you focus on with feeling is what hatches around you. So think about what you are actually putting your main focus on as you move through your day. The imaginal activity of living in the feeling of the wish fulfilled leads man across a bridge of incident to the fulfillment of the dream. If we live in the dream thinking from it and not of it, then the creative power of imagining will answer our adventurous fancy. I'm not going to go over the thinking of and thinking from, because we went over that quite a bit in the first session last month. But it's being in it, looking out your eyes and participating mentally, emotionally, visually in being in the scene. And that's how we create deeper states of being. Okay. Now, if we live in the dream thinking from it and not thinking of it, then the creative power of imagining will answer our adventurous fancy. And the wish fulfilled will break in upon us and take us unawares. So things will come to us that we want if we make this a practice. So instead of having a life where you're standing here reacting to this, reacting to this, reacting to this, you're stepping back and you're going, okay, those things I'm not going to water or give any attention to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my focus on the wanted thing. And then from that, I'm going to keep doing that and I'm going to get better at that. And I'm going to feel the feelings of having that. And I'm going to be in the state of, I love this. And the more I do that, the more I see wanted things around me. Man is all imagination, therefore, man must be where he is in imagination, for his imagination is himself. To realize that imagination is not something tied to the senses or enclosed within the spatial boundary of the body is most important. Okay, so imagination is an internal thinking process. It's the language of the mind. Thoughts are the language of the mind. Imaginal pictures are the language of the mind. emotions are the language of the body. So the better you have pictures that are of desired, wanted things here, then that goes down and creates better emotions in your body. And it is very much not an external thing. Everything that's created around us was first a thought that then became a thing, a relationship, money, a job, you know, an amazing house, whatever it is. It's an internal process that then you learn to create rather than react. Although man moves about in space by movement of his physical body, he needs not be so restricted. He can move by a change in what he's aware of. However, reel the scene on which sight rests. So whatever you stick your eyeballs on, whatever you gaze on, that is what you will then bring towards you. So if you're looking at poverty, you're going to have an emotional reaction to it, and then you're going to often create it for yourself. Whereas if you see poverty and then you revise it while you see it, using revision in the here and now, in this moment, when you see that homeless person, when you see someone complaining on the bus about that they can't pay their utilities and the cost of fuel's gone up and they can't afford to drive their car anymore and they have to sell it, revise what you hear as you move around, because otherwise you pull it into you. So you can do little quick revisions as you move through your day. And that is doing that person a great service. Now, however, reel the scene on which sight rests. Man can gaze on one never before witnessed. So you can gaze on an imaginal scene, which implies you having $1 million or this incredible relationship or that amazing job where you just can't wait to jump out of bed for in the morning. You can gaze upon that through using your imaginal scenes to do so, and then you will gaze upon it outside of you. You will experience the result, okay? He can always move. No, he can always remove the mountain if it upsets his concept of what life ought to be. So you move the mountain, not by pushing against it, but by going, that's not to my liking. Where do I need to put my focus, my thought, my imaginal scenes, my feeling place for that to disappear? Whatever the mountain is for you. Now, the ability to mentally move from things as they are to things as they ought to be is one of the most important discoveries that man can make. Yes. So you're using your mind to transform situations, not put the handbrake up and stay gridlocked in the concrete of it. It reveals man as a center of imagining with powers of intervention, which enables him to alter the course of observed events. So whatever events you are currently living, know that you have the power of intervention. You just have to get pinpointed focus on what the solution would be. So clarity, the universe loves clarity. Get clear as to what that would be, okay? Now, it reveals man as a center of imagining with powers of intervention, which enables him to alter the course of observed events, moving from success to success through a series of mental transformations of nature, of others, of himself. So what you're doing is anytime you see something that's not to your liking, you start to correct your thoughts about it. You go, oh, if that's in front of me, what have I got going on within me that I need to change? My thoughts about it, my thoughts about myself, my negative emotion. What is it that I need to change? Okay. Now, Gayatri, I'm going to take your question.
Yeah. Hi, Agnes.
Hi.
So, yeah. How did you maintain your state when you wanted to manifest your specific person?
Working on myself.
Right?
Working on my self-love consistently.
Okay. So, yeah, because earlier you answered, because we are talking about the states, I don't want to be like, yeah. So it's like earlier you said someone that like the state needn't be like you are created imaginational scene where you are always with the person every moment. You cannot be imagining that becomes like an obsession, right?
That's
So
right.
you need, yeah, and you need the external thing to change so that you can feel content inside, right? That's what, then you keep looking for the answer there. So you said that you can go, you said you are going to a beach where you are feeling content and happy. So even thinking of that every, say 2-3 times a day or whatever, I don't know the timing or whatever. So even thinking of such satisfying moments can shift your state, and will it give the end result what you want?
Well, it can. Yes, it can. But you've got to, okay, I like what you said about you can't do it all day. And if you are, it's obsession. So using a relationship, if you are constantly living in the end, imaginal scenes about being with your specific person, you got to ask yourself the question, am I using my imaginal scene to get love? So although Neville doesn't talk about the quality of the imaginal scene, I am going to talk about it because I was on my own, and then I manifested a specific person, and I can look back at my experience, and I can see that yes, doing the SP imaginal scenes were good, but when I first started to do that, I was doing it from a place of trying to get. So if you want love, it's like Neville has got the imaginal scene as the thing to do, but he also talks about states. You got to do two things, and they are two halves of a nut, you see. So the first thing is the imaginal scene is fine, but if you're just doing it from a place of loneliness, and if I can just get this, I will feel better, you've missed the point of I'm in a state of unlovedness and I need to get into a state of lovedness. That's the bit of Neville that I think many people that are trying to manifest relationships miss, because they go straight for the imaginal scene. They do it, which is excellent, but you still got to change the state underneath, which is I don't feel loved, and I think love would make me feel better. And if you are doing that, you still see love as an external thing, and you haven't changed the state within you. So you need to change the state and do the imaginal scene and put them together. Because if you are doing imaginal scenes to take and get, I think you've got your ladder up the wrong wall. You can do it, but I think they're low-grade imaginal scenes. That would be my opinion. Looking back at where I was when I was doing those, and then what I learned along the way before I manifested my specific person, I had to learn to do imaginal scenes once I felt I am love, and I am loved and lovable, and may divine love be made alive in me. I finally changed my state, and then doing the SP imaginal scenes brought me a better result because I changed the foundation. I'm glad you asked that, because that's an important one.
And that's what I'm coming to say. But sometimes you don't feel like you see, the change is not happening in the outside. When you're trying to see and dig and see whether the seed has sprouted. So because we are human beings, we are tempted to do that. Okay, so then is it going back to saying yourself that no, my state is my priority? the state that I live in is my priority. My happiness is my priority. I should not be keep digging it. I should trust and let go. That's what you're coming to say.
Yes, and if you keep looking at it's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening, where's the evidence, where's the evidence, where's the evidence, it tells you about yourself that you are not yet able to stabilize in I am love. Because when you're in a state of I am love, you honestly do not need to know when that person comes, because your love is not dependent on an outside source. And then when you get good at that, you then are the best partner you can be for somebody, because you are in a state of love and you're giving love to a relationship rather than trying to get love from it. I think it's a spiritual maturity that happens over time as you do this. It grows in, I don't need to get love from you. I have love, and when you're ready, if you're ready, we can get together and I'm going to overflow my self-love onto you, but I'm doing that for myself now anyway, so it really doesn't matter anymore. And that, when you get to that place, the relationships fall into place, because there's no more, I need to get love, I need to get love, where is it, where is it, where is it, where is it, I need more, I'm not getting enough, I'm not getting enough. All of that's gone from within you. But it's a transition, you know. I'm not saying to you that that's easy. It's simple in theory, but it's not, it's not easy in practice. And I know, because I've had to do it. So, but you will get better at it over time. And anytime you are in, how long is this taking? Why is this taking so long? You are in get mode. You are in take mode. You are in, I need something from them to make me feel better mode. And you are not a good partner when you're in that state for that other person.
Amazing. Thank you.
Good question. Good question. Okay, now continuing on. This is probably my favorite story of all time in this book, and it's the doctor and his wife. For many years, the doctor and his wife dreamed about their stately habitation, but not until they Dawn, can you please keep yourself muted? Dawn, keep yourself muted, please. Thank you. Dawn, I need you to mute yourself because I can't mute you for some reason. Thank you. Okay, now, when I read this story to you, what I'd like you to do, if you've heard it, great. If you've never heard it before, that's fine. Try and apply this is like a template story. I remember I read this story at least 100 times, and I went through it and I thought, what they did, I'm going to trace it and put it onto my situation. And I think this is one of the stories that helped me the most to create and manifest all of the things that I've got, because this is about letting the fruit ripen naturally, and don't pick the fruit before it's ripe. This is what these guys are really good at. Now, for many years, no, I've read that bit. Some 15 years ago, Mrs. M and I purchased a lot on which we built a 2-story building, housing our office and living area. We left ample space on the lot for an apartment building, if and when our finances would permit. All those years, we were busy paying off our mortgage, and at the end of that time, had no money for the additional building we still desired so much. It was true that we had an ample savings account, which meant security for our business, but to use any part of it for a new building would be to jeopardize that security. But now your teaching awakened a new concept, boldly telling us we could have what we most desired through the controlled use of our imagination, and that realizing a desire was made more convincing without money. We decided to put it to the test, to forget about money and concentrate our attention on the thing we desired most in this world, the new apartment building. With this principle in mind, we mentally constructed the new building as we wanted it, actually drawing physical plans so we could better formulate a mental picture of the completed structure, never forgetting to think from the end, in our case, the completed occupied building. We took many imaginative trips through our apartment house, renting the units to imaginary tenants, examining in detail every room, and enjoying the feeling of pride as friends offered congratulations on the unique planning. We brought into our imaginal scene one friend in particular. I shall call her Mrs. X. A lady we had not seen for some time, as she had given us up socially, believing us a bit peculiar in our new way of thinking. In our imaginal scene, we took her through the building and asked how she liked it. Hearing her voice distinctly, we had her reply, "Doctor, I think it's beautiful." So what's interesting about this story so far, they used hearing the woman's voice, audio. They obviously had visuals as they walked through the apartment building. And they imagined the tenants, they imagined the detail of the rooms, and they imagined, and this bit, the feeling of pride. So they had at least 3 senses of the 5 active in their imaginal scene. Okay. Now, one day while talking together of our building, my wife mentioned a contractor who had constructed several apartment houses in our neighborhood. We knew of him only by the name that appeared on signs adjacent to the building under construction. But, and this is the important part of this story, but realizing that if we were living in the end, we would not be looking for a contractor. So we promptly forgot this angle. Continuing these periods of daily imagining for several weeks, we both felt we were now fused with our desire and had successfully been living in the end. So isn't that interesting? They see the sign for the contractor, but then you go, well, hang on, if we're looking for a contractor, that means that the building isn't completed, which means we're not living in the end if we go and bring this guy up. So they dropped the obvious here and now of what you would normally do if you weren't practicing Neville's teachings, which is ring up the contractor, get a quote, find out, and on it goes down the usual routes. So one day a stranger enters our office. One day, we don't know exactly how long it took because they didn't say in the story. The stranger enters our office and identified himself as the contractor whose name my wife had mentioned weeks before. In an apologetic manner, he said, "I don't know why I stopped here. I normally don't go to see people, but rather people come to see me." He explained that he'd passed our office often and had wondered why there wasn't an apartment building on the corner lot. We assured him we would like that very much, to have such a building there, but we had no money to put into the project, not even the few $100s it would take for plans. Our negative response did not faze him, and seemingly compelled, he began to figure and devise ways and means to carry out the job, unasked and unencouraged by us. Forgetting the incident, we were quite startled when a few days later this man called, informing us that the plans were completed and that the proposed building would cost us $30,000. We thanked him politely and did absolutely nothing. Now, this is them seeing something come and they don't grab the fruit that's half ripened. This is what I love about the doctor and his wife. They know when to still sit on their hands. So the guys come in unasked, they didn't ring him, and then he proposes that he's got some plans and they didn't jump at it. This is amazing restraint, I think. Now, we thanked him politely and did absolutely nothing. We knew we had been living imaginatively in the end of a completed building, and that imagination would assemble that building perfectly without any outside assistance from us. Love that. I've written in my book, wow, next to this, because this really hit me when I first read it. We knew, and I'm going to read it again, because this is how you can transform your own situation. Wait. Don't jump too quick. Don't move too fast. Okay? We knew we'd been imaginatively living in the end of a completed building, and that that imagination would assemble that building perfectly without any outside assistance from us. So we were not surprised when the contractor called again the next day to say he had found a set of blueprints in his files that fitted our needs perfectly with few alterations. This, we were informed, would save us the architect's fee for new plans. We thanked him again and still did nothing. Again, they wait. The fruit is ripening. It's not yet ripe. They understand that. Logical thinkers would insist that such a negative response from prospective customers would completely end the matter. Instead, 2 days later, the contractor again called with the news that he had located a finance company willing to cover the necessary loan, with the exception of a few $1,000s. It sounds incredible, but we still did nothing. They were unbelievably patient. It's mind-bending. For remember, to us, this building was completed and rented, and in our imagination, we had not put one penny into the construction. The balance of this tale reads like a sequel to Alice in Wonderland, for the contractor came to our office the next day and said, as though presenting us with a gift, you people are going to have that new building anyway. I've decided to finance the balance of the loan myself. If this is agreeable, I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers and you can pay me back out of the net profits from the rentals. This time we did something. So they let the fruit ripen, they let the fruit ripen, they let the fruit ripen, and then it fell into place. This time we did something. We signed the papers and construction began immediately. Most of the apartment units were rented before final completion, and all but one occupied the day of completion. We were so thrilled by the seemingly miraculous events of the past few months that for a while we didn't understand this seemingly flaw in our imaginal picture. But knowing what we had already accomplished through the power of imagining, we immediately conceived another imaginal scene, and in it, this time, instead of showing the party through the unit and hearing the words, "We'll take it," we ourselves in imagination visited the tenants who had already moved into that apartment. So what they did was they did the ahead in time technique. Rather than renting it, it's been rented, we're visiting them. So they jumped, say, a month past the event, the actual manifestation. Now, we allowed them to show us through the rooms and heard their pleased and satisfied comments. So again, visual sense, audio sense, and then the feeling of being pleased and satisfied that they picked up from the tenant. Now, obviously, they would have been pleased and satisfied as well. Our original imaginary drama had objectified itself in every detail save one, and that one became a reality when 1 month later, our friend, Mrs. X, surprised us with a long overdue visit, expressing her desire to see our new building. Gladly, we took her through, and at the end of the tour, heard her speak the line we had heard in our imagination so many weeks before, as with emphasis on each word she said. "Doctor, I think it's beautiful." Our dream of 15 years was realized, and we know now that it could have been realized any time within those 15 years if we had known the secret of imagining and how to live in the end of the desire. But now it was realized our one big desire was objectified, and we did not put one penny of our own money into it. Dr. DM. An amazing story. So, Amber, I'm going to ask you to answer a question.
Hi, I hope you're well. I wanted to ask, I've seen in your previous videos when you talk about living in the States, there were videos where you said there was a period of time, I think around 8 months, where every single night after work you would lay on your bed and just repeat an affirmation until you felt it. I thought that was super powerful. I love that. I always go back to that. I want to ask though, what do you do when in the moment you just feel like you can't crack the emotion? Let's say either feeling unloved or feeling, I know, second best is my one. How do you just finally crack that and still have the, I suppose, energy after, let's say, an hour or 2 hours to keep going? Did you always, at the end of the day, eventually get to that feeling, or was it over time you'd slowly be able to get to that feeling?
I did it. At that point, I'd probably known about Neville for 15 years. So, and also Florence Scovel Shinn and Abraham Hicks. So I was already able to understand the mechanics of it. So I got to the point where fairly quickly it took me 2 hours some nights, don't get me wrong. I used to do I am loved and I am good enough and I'm secure. And I used to think, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not. So, but if you keep doing it for an extended period of time, it's like the energy breaks. I remember hearing like this shattering of glass. It was like, and it was like all of a sudden I realized I had broken through that negative. It's like a thought barrier, you know, and it finally got past it. But it did take me up to 2 hours sometimes of practicing that one thing. I'm very, very loved. I'm very, very loved. I'm very, very loved. May divine love be made alive in me. I jumped from about 3 different affirmations, but they all kind of implied the same thing. May divine love be made alive in me. I am very, very loved. And I am love. So I use those 3. So it's just practice, Amber. You know, it's repetition, reprogramming, because we keep going back to, no, you're not loved and you are second best. But that's because you've done that again and again and again and again, and you programmed yourself after those people programmed you, the ones that raised us. So you've just carried on what they started or what they brought up in you. And it's just persistence, pinpointed focus, keep going. I mean, there are times where I was just so exhausted, I'd fall off to sleep, you know, because it's tough holding your mind on something. The ability to concentrate and focus takes a lot of work. So that's why it took me 8 months. And I didn't watch TV or anything for months and months and months. All I did, well, this was the book I used. I read this book hundreds of times, going over the stories, highlighting bits, going, how do I apply this to this situation again and again and again and again until I trained myself. I made that the most important thing after work.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And one more question, if I may ask.
Yeah.
When it comes to feeling the states, it seems that sometimes I'll be in a meditation and I'll feel the state, let's say again, of feeling first best, but it'll only last for a moment. And then throughout the day, even while repeating, you know, I'm first best or I am good enough, I'll still feel it's like it feels stuck, the emotion in my body. So I want to know, how are you able to over time hold the state of, let's say, for instance, I am first best, or to, I suppose, let go of the fear of infidelity and all that stuff? How are you able to over time really solidify that within yourself? Because I know I watched your video that said trust is sort of also picking a partner that is trustworthy, and I do believe in that as well, but of course there's also a part of you that is influencing it. So how were you able to really hold that state within yourself? I would love to know. I
think it's, yes, doing the things I just said, but you have to clear the inner child stuff. You can't. The inner child is the strongest magnet of all. And it is usually, if there's reoccurring patterns, a negative magnet. Now, the inner child's got some good things about it where it has had some positive influence and positive things happen. So you carry that as well. But when it comes to relationships, money, work, health, the inner child holds the key. So you have to, I think, do your reprogramming and your self-love meditations, etc., but you can't ice a rotten cake. You got to go back and clear, you know, all the times that you can access. Now, you don't need to necessarily remember the memories. You got to clear the emotion. So if you've got a memory to help you where you remember where you felt second best and unwanted and not good enough, then use those as a gateway in. But if you don't remember, the inner child remembers the emotion. So just say to the inner child, I don't remember what the memories are, but please let this go, and try and access, especially do those inner child meditations when your emotions are up here and you feel really abandoned, really lonely, really unwanted, really insecure, really jealous, really about a third party. That's when you do the inner child work, because you'll fish hook it out really easily. You don't have to, don't waste a good day doing inner child work, because you'll throw yourself into some stuff. So if you're having a good day, enjoy the good day. But if somebody's pushed your button and hit you in the raw pink nerve of something old, that's when you do it as soon as you can. Obviously, if you're not having to go to work, or you're, you know, tend to it as soon as you can, because it will be easy to cry it out. It will be easy to feel the anger of stuff. I mean, if you feel angry, you know, go for a run, punch it out. If you're not physical, you're not a physical person, scream into a pillow, you know, get the anger out, get the I'm second best out, get the I'm not good enough out, get it out of your body, because that's the magnet.
Perfect. Thank you so much. If I may ask one more thing, because it does connect to this, you've also mentioned Brandon Bays.
Yes.
And I read her book and it was wonderful, but the only thing is that she, in the process, she mentions having a partner. I don't have anyone at the moment who would help me with that. Is it a process you can do on your own, or would you say doing things like inner child meditation, Ho'oponopono, that is enough to unhook that emotion and that feeling?
Yeah, I know she said that. I didn't do any of Brandon Bay's work with a partner. I don't really like working in partners, not when I'm going through heavy emotional stuff. I rather do that stuff on my own, you know? So I just used her. I've got this, because my thing's so old, I've got her CDs, and there's the emotional journey on one and there's the physical journey on the other. So if you've got a health condition, you use the physical journey. If you've got, I feel second best in my relationships having issues, use the emotional journey one. She's probably got them as MP3s now, but if you can get those two processes, however she sells them on her website, I would invest in those two things. And then, yes, you can still do the inner child meditations for free, because I think I've got two. And then there's the Dr. Hugh Len one that I used when obviously I wouldn't use my own ones. There's his. So you can use those three and Brandon Bay's, the emotional journey and the physical journey, because you go into the body and you call people in from the past and you speak to them over the campfire, and that brings up emotion. So if you can do those things and then use Neville's Living in the End and Revision and Imagination Creates Reality, I think you've got the best toolbox of all.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to mute myself now so that I don't take up too much time. But
No
just one last thing. How long do you think it took you to unhook yourself from a negative emotion like I'm second best? Thank you, by the way. I'm going to mute myself now.
For me, it was a long time, because I thought that I couldn't get rid of it. I'm second best and I'm not good enough. And I had a massive fear of third parties, because my culture being French Italian, everybody's having affairs. So, and that's normal. So, you know, I had a huge I'm second best and I'm not good enough culturally, then from my family, and then in my own relationships. So I just felt cornered at every turn. And I would say for me, it took probably 25 years to get rid of that, because of the depth of the ancestry around that for me. But it doesn't mean it has to take you that long. It just depends on your culture, your family, your experience. You know, I started the letting go of that probably later than I should have. I tried to hop over it and avoid it and just do imaginal scenes and change states. Now, did that work? for periods of time, but then the terror of that stuff would come back. And then, of course, when you got intense emotion about something, whoosh, you just bring it straight in. So I had to go through that repeatedly in 5 relationships before I got rid of it, because I had the belief, I can't get rid of this. I can't get rid of this. I can't get rid of this. How am I going to get rid of this? Maybe I'm stuck with this till the day I die. Now, that's not true. It was just a belief. And I felt powerless over it. But, you know, I can tell you today, I don't have that anymore. So if you do the right things straight up and go to the root cause, yes, do Neville's stuff like we talked about here today, but back it up with inner child, back it up with affirmations, back it up with Ho'oponopono. And if you do those things, you clean the windows much more quickly, I think. Good stuff. Now, I'm going to grab one more question. Ipsita, just unmute yourself.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask this question. Whenever I try to manifest, like small stuffs, it is very easy to, I easily manifest very little stuffs, which I don't even care about a bit. But the big stuffs, when I try to manifest them by living living from the end, exact opposite situations happen. Like I try to manifest something good in the outer world, but the outer result is extremely negative or extremely opposite. So I don't know why this happens. While I really try to relate or understand, but I am not able to understand.
How long have you been working on, like, okay, firstly, how are you trying to manifest it? That's my first question to you.
Like sometimes like maintaining a good positive relationship with people, or issues, family stuffs, or like job.
Ipsita, no. Okay, pick one thing that you really want just in your head. How long have you been trying to work on that one thing?
For a year or so, I have been trying, and I have been trying, and for a short span of time, it gets manifested into something good. But again, most of the time, it just turns out into negative stuff. Like
so let me ask you, what are you doing in terms of manifestation? Because it's not just what you want, it's what are you doing in particular, because there's a lot of stuff that's a waste of time, I'll be honest.
So I have tried Ho'oponopono, and also there is so much negativity there is from the past, like so I am also trying inner child meditations, and that brings up so many stuffs.
But you say you're trying.
Yes,
can you be specific? Like, I'm doing 3 times a week for half an hour. There needs to be consistency. So how much are you doing?
I try like before going to sleep at night, I do both of these, Ho'oponopono and inner child meditation. And after waking up in the morning, I try to do the stuffs of Dr. Joe's.
Dispenza?
Dr. Joe's, yes, ma'am. That Botek second meditation. It really works for me. I don't know how, but something just speaks up. So, but I don't know, the steps are just not coming up. The result that I want to see, it just doesn't work out.
Okay, let me ask you, what state are you trying to achieve? Like, are you trying to achieve a state of success, a state of health, a state of love? What state are you trying to get to?
I am actually trying to manifest in all these departments equally, because these are just affecting me a lot, especially the maintaining family issues or stuffs. This affects my health, and
Okay.
this further affects my
Ipsita,
success.
just stop for a sec. What state are you trying to get to? See, if you're trying to manifest a whole bunch of stuff, you
Mhm.
need to know what state you're trying to get to. You need to be clear about the state you need. Like when you get the thing you want, what do you think that's going to give you? What feeling or what state you think that's going to give you that you haven't got?
Feeling of love
Okay.
and happiness, that that
Okay.
familiar bond kind of
Okay.
feeling. Whereas the end result I always get is, unloved, feeling of unloved
Okay.
and feeling of unfulfillment.
Okay. So ask yourself the question, how good have I been at getting into the feeling of happiness, the feeling of love beforehand, before I manifest? Because that's going to tell you why you're not moving anything on the outside. You have to get into the state that you desire before you get the manifestation, you see. So ask yourself, and you don't have to answer me, this is just between you and you if you want, how good have I been at getting into the state of love and happiness and being consistent at it? Because that will give you the answer as to why this is the way it is on the outside.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the work. It's not looking on the outside and going, okay, they're not treating me well. They're not doing this. This hasn't changed. I haven't manifested. That's all dissatisfaction coming from you.
Okay.
And I'm not saying you're in that state all the time. You're explaining this to me so that I can help you. So I get that. But it's like, if I'm in a state of dissatisfaction, I'm not getting enough, I want more, why isn't this changing? Why is this taking so long? You are fully fixated on the external, and you are more fixated on the external than you are in maintaining your own vibration, energy, and state of being.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, one more question, just a simple one. While reading the story that you talked about, this doctor and his wife, they were constantly being patient. They were not just giving up with the ideas that the constructor was approaching towards them. I just few weeks ago, you shared a success story about a student who who completed her graduation or something with the help
Yes.
of hope. So during that success story, she shared that you told her that her qualification was not enough for her to achieve the end result. So she could have also waited without going through like the using her degrees, like the like the doctor and his wife is being patient without using anything. They are just resting in their own way. So in that story, that the success story that you shared, why how come that's different? Like she could have also used her imagination and waited patiently, and maybe it could have taken in some other way. The success story could have.
You know what's interesting is the woman whose story, that story is Annabelle, and Annabelle is in this call today. She's here. Yeah, she's here. So I just thought I'd tell you that. Now, there are certain things, I hear what you're saying, but like, you can't just imagine being a doctor and not go to medical school and then you're going to be able to see patients and that you're going to be valid as a doctor. You have to go to university to be a doctor. That's the way our system is set up. You can't start treating patients and having surgery, being a surgeon or any of those things without training and without the training being certified. There are certain exceptions. That, I say, would be one of them. You can't bypass every single thing. And quite frankly, I'm glad we can't, because I wouldn't want someone who's just used their imagination to operate on my big toe. I wouldn't want that. So there are certain things that I think imagination can get you a big, long part of the way, but there are certain things that you do need training for. And that was the conversation that Annabelle and I had in that very first session all those years ago, which we talked about in the interview. And you know, Annabelle, if you want to say a few words, I think Annabelle believed that at the time too, where you can just imagine and get yourself there. Annabelle, do you want to say anything? Annabelle?
Hi, can you hear
want
me?
Yeah, I can hear you, lovey.
Oh.
Do you want to say anything? Is
Yeah.
that funny? She's talking about your story and you're in here.
Yeah. You know, it's like you said to me, you actually said that you can't become a doctor without getting qualifications, because that's actually what I thought. I could do this without going through the process. I could bypass it, but you can't. Sometimes you have to start at the very beginning to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
I just love the story. Actually, I could have never imagined that rubbing out technique can be used in this way as well. The way Annabelle ma'am used it, I just love that story, and I could personally like felt a change within. So thank you for sharing that story.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's so lovely that of all the stories you mentioned hers, and she's here. Beautiful, beautiful synchronicity.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, darling. My pleasure. Okay. Now, I'm just going to read this last little bit on this story of the doctor and his wife. Through the medium of a dream, a controlled waking dream, the doctor and his wife created reality. They learned how to live in their dream house, as, in fact, they now do. Although help seemingly came from without, meaning from the outside, the course of events was ultimately determined by the imaginal activity of the doctor and his wife. The participants were drawn into their imaginal drama because it was dramatically necessary that they should be. Their imaginal structure demanded it. So this is just such a great example of that you have to have a thought, an idea. And I mean, they could have easily spent their savings and had the thing built and then put themselves in a little bit of financial trouble, but they didn't. And I love how they persisted, didn't pick the fruit before it's ripe. I think that is the best story I've ever heard of people not picking the fruit before it's ripe. They allowed it to ripen. And then when they had the issue with Mrs. X, where, you know, she had kind of, you know, left them socially because they obviously weren't something enough for her, they corrected that, they revised her, and they brought her back into their lives through letting go of, she thinks we're not good enough, she thinks we're whatever. They corrected and revised and brought her in and fixed that last little bit that went wrong. And that was so what was so great was, even though it was 90% perfect, their imaginal scene, and it worked out, there was still a little flaw. And then what they did was they created a whole new imaginal scene with that little flaw. And they created a new. So they ironed out all the wrinkles, which I think is absolutely fabulous. And I hope that that serves to all of you that are going through something right now as a wonderful template to use, as I have used it again and again and again, for my business, for my amazing relationship, for traveling back and forth from Australia to London, from working remotely, from having amazing friends, from losing weight and being in good health, all those things. It's remembering this. You don't jump too quick, too fast. The lesson in this story is profoundly good. And I think this story is beautifully written and amazing. So, continuing on a little bit, All Things by a law divine in one another's being mingle. The following story illustrates the way in which a lady prepared her stately habitation by imaginatively sleeping in it or dwelling therein. So this whole chapter, dwelling therein, is really about you dwelling in the imaginal scenes, the living from it, the state of being that having that thing that you want would bring you. You pull what you think you're going to get then, and you drag it into the now, and you drop it into the here and now. Okay? Now, a few months ago, my husband decided to place our home on the market. The main object for the move, which we had discussed many times, was to find a home large enough for the two of us. My mother and my aunt, in addition to 10 cats, 3 dogs, and 1 parakeet. Believe it or not, the contemplated move was my husband's idea, as he loved my mother and aunt and said I was at their house most of the time anyway, so why not live together and pay 1 tax bill? I liked the idea tremendously, but I knew that this new home would have to be something very special in size, location, and arrangement, as I insisted on privacy for all concerned. So, at the moment, I was undecided whether to sell our present home or not, but I didn't argue, as I knew quite well from past experience with imagining that our house would never sell until I stopped sleeping in it. 2 months and 4 or 5 real estate brokers later, my husband had given up on the sale of our house, and so had the brokers. At this point, I had convinced myself I now wanted the change. So for 4 nights in my imagination, 4 nights, what a good investment of time, I went to sleep in the kind of home I would like to own. On the 5th day, my husband had an appointment at a friend's home, and while there, met a stranger who just happened to be looking for a house in the hills. He was, of course, brought swiftly back to see our house, which he walked through once and said, "I'll buy it." This didn't make us very popular with the brokers, but that was all right with me, as I was happy to keep the broker's commission in the family. We moved within 10 days and stayed with my mother while looking for our new home. We listed our requirements with every agent on the Sunset Strip, only because I wouldn't move out of the area. And each one of them, without exception, informed us we were both mad. It was entirely impossible, they said, to find an older home of English style with 2 separate living rooms, separate apartments, a library, built on a flat knoll with enough ground space to fence for large dogs, and located in one particular area. We told them the price we would pay for this house, and they just looked sad. I said that wasn't all we wanted. We wanted wood paneling all through the house, a huge fireplace, a magnificent view, and seclusion. No close neighbors, please. At this point, the lady agent would giggle and reminded me that there was no such house, but if there was, we would realize 5 times what we were willing to pay. They would realize 5 times what we were willing to pay. But I knew there was such a house because my imagination had been sleeping in it. And if I am my imagination, then I had been sleeping in it. By the 2nd week, we had exhausted 5 real estate agents, and the gentleman in the 6th office was looking a little wild when one of his partners, who had not spoken until then, said, "Why don't you show them the place up at King's Road?" A 3rd partner in the office laughed sourly and said, "That property isn't even listed. And besides, the old lady would throw you off the property. She's got 2 acres up there and you know she wouldn't split." Well, I didn't know what she wouldn't split, but my interest had been aroused by the street name, for I liked that particular area best of all. So I asked, why not just take a look anyway, for laughs? As we drove up the street and turned off into the private road, we approached a large 2-story house built of redwood and brick. English in appearance, surrounded by tall trees and sitting alone and aloof on its own knoll, viewing the city below from all of its many windows. I felt a particular excitement as we walked to the front door and we were greeted by a lovely woman who graciously asked us in. I do not think I breathed for the next minute or two, for I had walked into the most exquisite room I have ever seen. The solid redwood walls and the brick of a great fireplace rose to a height of 28 feet, terminating in an arched ceiling joined together by a huge redwood beam. By huge redwood beams. The room was straight out of Dickens, and I could almost hear Christmas carolers singing on the balcony of the upstairs dining room, which looked out over the living room. A great cathedral window gave a view of sky, mountains, and city far below, and the beautiful old redwood walls glowed in the sunlight. We were shown through a spacious apartment on the lower floor with connecting library, separate entrance, and separate patio. 2 staircases led upward to a long hale opening into 2 separated bedrooms and baths, and at the end of the hale was, yes, a second living room, opening out onto a second patio, screened by trees and redwood fencing. Built on 2 acres of beautifully landscaped grounds, I began to understand what the agent had meant by saying she wouldn't split, for on 1 acre stood a large swimming pool and pool house completely separated from the main house, but undoubtedly belonging to it. It did, indeed, seem to be an impossible situation, as we did not want 2 acres of highly taxable property plus a swimming pool a block away from the house. Before we left, I walked through the magnificent living room, once more going up the stairs to the dining room balcony. I turned and looked down and saw my husband standing by the fireplace, pipe in hand, with an expression of perfect satisfaction on his face. I placed my hands on the balcony rail and watched him for a moment. When we were back in the real estate's office, the 3 agents were ready to close for the day, but my husband detained them, saying, "Let's make her an offer anyway. Maybe she will split the property. What can we lose?" 1 agent left the office without a word. Another said, "The idea is ridiculous." The agent we had originally talked to said, "Forget it, it's a pipe dream." My husband is not easily annoyed, but when he is, there is no more stubborn creature on earth. He was now annoyed. He sat down, slammed his hand on the desk and roared, "It's your business to submit offers, isn't it?" They agreed that this was so, and finally promised to submit our offer on the property. We left, and that night, in my imagination, I stood on that dining room balcony and looked down at my husband standing by the fireplace, and he looked up at me and said, "Well, honey, how do you like our new home?" I said, "I love it." I continued to see the beautiful room and my husband in it, and felt the balcony rail gripped in my hands until I fell asleep. The next day, as we were having dinner in my mother's house, the telephone rang, and the agent, in an unbelieving voice, informed me that we had just purchased a house. The owner had split the property right down the middle, giving us the house and the acre it stood on for the price we offered. Dreamers often lie in bed awake while they do dream things true. So this woman imagined her husband in front of the fireplace. She saw it. So using the sense of sight, she used the discussion with her husband. "Well, honey, how do you like our new home?" And then she said, "I love it." So she felt the feeling of having it, and she also lived in the end, and she also heard her husband's voice, and she did at this point, unimaginable by all the agents. So 4 nights she imagined, and then she did the 5th night after they saw the property. 5 nights. It's not a long time to have such an amazing, amazing result. So that's a powerful living in the end story too. Jesset, I'm going to call you. Just unmute yourself. Hang on, my lovely. Ask to unmute. There we go. There we go.
Hi there. Hi.
Hello.
Hey. Thought I would do video. It might be more interactive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very quick practical question. And I think my questions always try to make them broad so can relate to many people. Both of these stories are fantastic. And this last one was quite detailed as far as the senses, because I mean, she went into exceptional detail. My question is, when you are trying to manifest something, be it money, specific person, or whatever, I've been using this technique since we started the book. First time I've ever heard of him. So this is exciting. I mean, I've heard of him, but not read any of his works. So I was doing this scene in my mind, and I'm wondering, the question might be, possibly doing it a little bit differently. We are bombarded with techniques, and you are really amazing when it comes to just direct simplifying things, breaking things down for us. So, for example, I was doing a specific person situation, imagining, you know, something fun like a bouquet of flowers, an engagement ring or something, but really the end goal is marriage. So should I just jump ahead in time and imagine already a year from now our anniversary versus what I've been doing, which is just the engagement ring, like they talked about with the doctor story. You know, they didn't do the traditional route, which you would imagine. Normally you do engagement, then you would do this, you would do. I'm wondering if it's just better just to go straight to the source. Bullseye.
You can, if you can activate the believability. I mean, you can jump that far. Let me ask you this. What would marriage give you that you haven't got right now in terms of states and feeling place?
It would be more for the goal after that, which would be children. I've always wanted to have children in that kind of context of like traditional family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't care. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, and that's not an uncommon thing for women to want to have that beautiful connection with children and raise them and to have that family and the nest and all of that. So if you had that, what would you feel in terms of secure, settled, more loving? What would be the difference? Where is the feeling place?
Excellent question. I've never thought about it.
Okay. That's all right. That's all right.
Excellent.
But it's like like often I'll use marriage as an example. Women think I'll get married so I'll feel secure. Well, it's like, what about if it's not happening? You get secure and you bring your security to your partner. Then you give him something rather than trying to suck something out of the marriage. So if you go, okay, if I want to have a marriage and children, what state am I going to offer that whole picture where I'm 2 months after the marriage, and no, 2 months isn't far enough. Let's say 2 years after the marriage, I've got an 18-month-old child, and I am now in a state of what compared to now? What state am I in?
I keep making this joke like tired mom, but that would be exciting. You know, that would actually be a good thing. Like, you know, I don't think that makes any sense. Yeah. But excited about having this responsibility, you know?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So hop into that. There's if you go to my channel, Jesset, put in a head in time technique.
Okay.
Because this is exactly what you're talking about. You pick a moment that's further down past the manifestation. And then you start to marinate yourself in the emotions of, I feel satisfied, I feel happy, I'm now, wow, I'm responsible for these 2 children, and I can share how to look after themselves and how they can become mentally and emotionally strong, and that they don't have to be looking for reassurance, and that they can be secure, and I can shape that in them. Wow, like what a gift that will be to be able to be in the presence of that. And if you hop further down into the rabbit hole and then think of the emotions you would have, yes, you would be tired, yes, you'd be doing school runs, yes, you'd be, but wow, bigger picture, what an amazing emotional state that can be. So try and do the I think it's a meditation ahead in time. If you use that meditation to do specifically on this topic of getting married and having children, see where it takes you in terms of states of being.
And you could apply this to money as well. For example, if you had
Totally.
you wanted to get out of money, instead of imagining just the zero debt, perhaps imagining a surplus in the bank would be an example of that, like going ahead of time versus paying off the debt. So I have, is that another idea?
Yes. And also the feeling of debt is the feeling of trapped and suffocation and worry and anxiety. And I say that from having been $40,000 in debt. So once you hop into the state ahead in time, you would feel relaxed. You wouldn't be preoccupied with money. You'd be thinking about other things. You'd feel free. And you would feel what a joy it is to buy what I want when I want.
Excellent.
So yes, do the imaginal scene, but the second half of the nut is the state that goes with it.
Is there a frequency, like how many times a week you would recommend, or is that just?
It's up to you, and I think you got to fit it in with what responsibilities you have. Don't try and do imaginal scenes when you're exhausted. I think if you're exhausted, go to sleep and go to bed and do it the next night. You can't focus properly when you're exhausted. Now, I know sometimes we get tired, but if you can attend to that first and then go, okay, I'm going to prepare myself to do these imaginal scenes. I'm going to have a week where I go to bed earlier, I look after myself with good food, exercise, water, and then my head will be clear. So when I go to do my imaginal scenes, I will be in the physically most optimum state. So I think a lot of people try and do the mental work, but their physical bodies are shattered from, and I get, sometimes you're working night shifts, you're working weird hours, you've got kids to look after, you've got parents, you've got dogs, you've got whatever. So there are times where you can't get on top of it as easily as I've just said to try. But if that's the case, say to yourself, what's the best time in my day? Am I a morning person? Let me do it in the morning. If I'm a night owl, let me do it at night. Pick what's best for your body's cycle, because we're all different, you see. Ahead in time, Annabelle, I just saw your little message pop up. Ahead in time meditation. Put those keywords into the main, well, just put my name into YouTube and put ahead in time meditation. I can't remember which channel it's on, the main channel or the meditation channel, but it'll pop up. Good question. Now, Sabine, I'm going to take one question from you. Just unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. Yep.
It's like a two-folded question, I think. I wrote it down. The first part is that I'm working on feeling like chosen and not second best anymore. But the affirmations saying to myself, I am chosen, I am first best, don't really resonate with me. That's the first part. And then the second part is then it's connected to manifesting my SP.
Sabine, can we do one part at a time? Because I have a very short attention span for remembering.
Oh, sorry.
things.
Yeah. I thought it, because it's connected. Yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's the first part. So
yeah. So you saying you just dropped out a little bit. You're saying you can't get into the feeling of the affirmations?
Yeah. Like I know the problem is that I don't feel chosen and I feel second best a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Then saying I'm first best and I am chosen.
Yeah.
Resonate with me. Like I cannot get the feeling of being chosen.
Well, I don't particularly like I am chosen, and I'm going to tell you why. It's relying and dependent on someone else doing it for you.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of coaches talk about that. I'll be honest, it's not one I would do, because it's give me love, pick me, like you're standing there waiting to be picked at school for the team and you're one of the last ones left. I mean, we all know that feeling.
Yeah.
But it's really dependent on other people. Now, I am first best can be just between you and you. It doesn't mean I'm first best to you. It's I'm first best because I love myself, because I'm looking after myself, because I'm connected to source or infinite intelligence. I would practice more. I am good enough. I'm just going to plug my computer in 1 sec. I would practice I am good enough, and I would practice I am secure, and I would practice I am love, because that's not depending on anyone else apart from, you know, the bigger infinite intelligence. So I see a lot of people doing this I'm chosen, and I just, unfortunately, I mean, you can do it. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't do affirmations like that years ago. I did. And that was with the level of where I was at that time. I think any affirmations that are about trying to get stuff from other people are low grade kindergarten affirmations. Now, we all start where we start, and that's fine. And look, you can say to me, look, Agnes, you know what? That one actually is okay for me. If I'm not saying you, Sabine, because you've said it doesn't work for you, but if anybody else in here uses it, you know, each to their own. But if certain words will not work for certain people too. Like, I know I'm abundant and I'm prosperous. I know what that means with my head, but my whole being connects. I can't see that visually. It doesn't mean anything. So I've never used those ones. I'd rather say I'm rich and I'm wealthy and I can see paper and metal and, you know, a check or a bag of money or whatever. I need to visually see it. So those things resonate more with me. So you got to find your words. So if you felt, and I get the second best feeling because I've marinated myself in that for decades. So I'm second best is very much underneath that is I'm not good enough. I'm second best is the second category. It's kind of the second tier. The first tier is I'm not good enough. That's it. So I would practice affirmations that perhaps are more love-centered. I am love. I am lovable. Lovable can be to source. It can be just between you and you. I am lovable because I was created by the powers that be. I am lovable. I'm unique. I'm lovable, and everybody's different, and we are all lovable. So it's not I'm lovable to my SP or I'm lovable to my family or whatever. So I think it's playing around. You might do may divine love be made alive in me. You might do I am love. You may do even I am wanted. I really wouldn't do that much these days, even though I've said that one for years and I've shared it with many of you in YouTubes. I wouldn't even do that one anymore because it's implying like I am chosen, I'm wanted by you, whoever you are, to me right now, you know. So I think the more powerful ones are the ones that you work from within. I am love. I don't need to do affirmations to get you to choose me. Don't need to be chosen by you to be validated or reassured. I don't need. I do feel I need. I have been conditioned and I've interpreted it that I need because of my inner child stuff. But I'm going to work on that, and I'm not going to do those type of affirmations anymore. I'm going to choose perhaps I am deserving and I'm worthy and I am loved and lovable and I am loved from within. That is the basis of who I am. I am love. I just need to get good at generating it from within and learning to overflow it. But until I can overflow it, I've just got to learn to generate it. The more I generate it, the more all of that with all of you, whoever you are at any given point, it will shift, because I don't need you to show me that I am good enough, because I'm not asking you to prove it to me. And I don't need it from you. So you're kind of unhooking yourself over time, you see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because
Yeah.
I think like the issue with my like SP, because I feel at times that I've like already manifested him, that it's like done, but then I also get impatient because he isn't there yet and I don't get the messages or whatever. And I think that like resonates with being not chosen or something. There's like, I think there's some kind of connection, but I just don't know how to then stick to the end state because I'm feeling impatient.
Well, you feel impatient because you think love's over there and you're not getting it.
Yeah.
That's why we're impatient. You're not giving me, you're not giving me, I'm not getting enough, I'm not getting enough, I want more, I want more. And that's, you're like in an addict state of love. It's called love addiction. You're in a state of, I'm the addict and you're the drug. And you can change that. You can. It just takes consistency, persistence, clearing the inner child, working with Ho'oponopono, doing your self-love meditations, doing your affirmations. And when you see your interpretation of impatience and they haven't messaged me back, if you start saying to yourself, why haven't they messaged me back? That is an instant red flag to yourself that you are trying to get external love and you're not in a loving state. You're in a getting state.
Yeah.
Joshua, I'm glad you're addicted to loving yourself, darling. That's wonderful. Good for you. We need more of those.
That helps a lot. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, everyone, that was wonderful. I'm thrilled that you got to listen to those first two stories because honestly, this book used to electrify me when I would read in bed and it kept me alive. It was my oxygen tank when I was, well, when my husband had left me and he was sleeping with another woman one street away, and I had thoughts of revenge and wanting to go and burn down that house that they were in. This is the book that kept me sane and kept me from doing anything stupid. So thank you for, no, Laszlo, I'm going to sign off, darling. Okay. I'm going to sign off.
My wishes for everyone then. All right.
I am going to sign off and I am going to say thank you to all of you for joining in. And I will, just so you know, I'm actually traveling. You know how I said we'd be doing this on the first Sunday of every month? I'm actually flying on that first Sunday of December because there was only one flight available. So what I will do is I will announce when this will happen in December. It might be a week later. It won't be a week earlier because that's my birthday and I'm going to take that off. So I will see when I do it and I will announce it pretty soon. I'll announce it well in advance because December is very busy for people. And yeah, just so you know what's going on and you can plan a bit better. I'll announce it next week. So you've got, you know, at least 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. All right. So
very wishes for you, Agnes. Thank you for everything.
Lots of love, everyone. And I will see you. Yes, if you want to unmute and say goodbye, just say goodbye, unmute and say goodbye.
One question regarding babies.
Thank you.
Agnes, my can be very good or not?